today I want to have a discussion about this medical pamphlet called the St. Louis Medical Review. It was written 1911 in August. It was written by a man named Albert S. Ashmed, MD. He's a doctor. And the title of this particular article is Man as a Geologic Species in the Western Hemisphere. This was a really interesting article, and it's kind of long. And if you try to look it up, you can find it on Google Books. But like I said, it's pretty long, and it has a lot of details about a lot of things, not just the man. It talks about the land, it talks about the insects, it talks about the vegetation, it talks about ancient history. So in the interest of saving time, I'm going to skip to the parts that are relevant to what I want to talk about. All right. But first we can go to part two, because it's 5 parts, but this is part two. Let's read it. Various isolated but concordant facts permit the supposition that long before the possession of Middle America by the formation and development of the great ethnic groups, the Paras, Caribs, Andeans, a great part of the South American continent had been occupied by an inferior human race of Negroid type. Many of the traditions of the tribes of the Darien recount that when their ancestors first arrived in most remote time, they found that the territory was occupied by little black men. So I like this already because you already know that he is not necessarily a fan of Negroes because he's saying an inferior race, right? So the rest of what I'm going to read, just keep that in mind. The dude is not trying to do black people any favors when he wrote this. Okay, but let me go to the next part that's relevant. And like I was saying about this earlier, it's pretty long and there are 5 parts and they don't run consecutively. There are a lot of other articles in between the parts. So if you go looking this up, just be forewarned that you're going to have to do a lot of scrolling to get to the next part and then to the next part. And again, the article is very interesting. It tells you a lot. It really does. But, just understand that you're going to have to read, and it's a lot to read, but it's worth the read for my people who really like searching for this information, okay? Again, the guy talks about everything from insects to layers of rock to everything, and he's just talking about history, right? So let's go to this part 5. This is the meat of it. Let's read it. It says, was primitive man in America a Negro? The answer to this question leans to the affirmative. So basically, he's telling you the first man in America was a Negro. I mean, you can't really make it more plain than that.
That to me is a Negroid face. That has all the features you associate with a Negroid face. The proportions of the face, it doesn't say anything about it being a Mongoloid.
So on the next page, down at the bottom, at the end, it says, for the earliest man of Panama and the Darien was a Negroid, just as the autonomies of Mexico were. And the civilization of Yucatan, Mexico, and Guatemala is reflected all throughout ancient Colombia, especially near the Pacific coast. But when the civilizations arrived at the American coast, both Atlantic and Pacific, the vast plains and territories were already occupied by dense populations, moderately organized already, whose origin is lost in the horizon of times, and whose growth has been referred to 3 great ethnological groups of humanity. Okay, now let's skip over on the same page to a couple other paragraphs. The first one reads, the presence of some same names in all the east zone of South America and the country of the Caribs would indicate some connection between Pampans and the Caribs. About Tumaco, there's a site called Usmil, which is the same name as that of the mysterious city of Central America, Exmel, the house of the dwarf. Tumaco is a beautiful port close to Ecuador and Colombia and was also the name of Cacique of Darien, and Darien was inhabited by Negro races in long past time. The cacique gave to Balboa his first notice of Peru the great statues of stone of Marilla and Porto Viejo in Ecuador, and those I have referred to of the Valley of San Augustine in Colombia have strange similarity to those found on the island of Momotombo in Nicaragua and were probably worked by artificers of the same race, inspired by the same civilization. So they're telling you these people and all of these statues that they're finding Negro faces on them from South America to Central America and even North America, which would be the Mexico territory. All right. Well, let's go to the next one. There were many tribes of Indians at the time of the discovery of the Western Hemisphere who are thought by scientists to belong to a Negro race. And that should be obvious because, like I've always said, the term Indian comes from the fact of you being dark skinned and not just your complexion, our actual bone structures in our face. When we look at each other, we see each other. No matter how light skinned, no matter how dark skinned, you see a Negro when you see a Negro, right? But anyway, it says such were the Otomis of Mexico, the Caracos of Haiti, the Arjos of Catara, the Avaros of Orinoco, the Matayas of Brazil, the Manabis of Quito, the Chuanas of Darien. Gomar's Historian General de India speaks of Negro slaves who were held in Panama soil. The Negroes figure with frequency in most remote traditions of Peru and of other American peoples. These men were little black and lived in groves and woods. Certainly tribes attribute the origin of their nation to Indian with two wives, one a negress who lived on the shores of Tartacuna. To this race is referred some of the ancient skeletons of peculiar structure, very distinct from those of the red American race. So they're telling you, they know that these old bones are Negroes, Negroid, just like Luzia in Brazil, Negroid. Even that Naya, they found that was older. She had Negro features. They tried to make her light skinned. She still was Negroid. Okay? Anyway, let's keep going. Worthy of attention are two crania of exaggerated progenesis with retreating foreheads and epiphysis very well unfolded, with strong superciliary ciliary arches that are found in the mountains of Samapas by Dr. Jan de Dios, whatever, who critically reviews the formation of the Andean range of mountains. Those mysterious statues of gods in stone at San Augustine have two characteristics of Negroid type, both of which are of greatest antiquity and representative of singular attributes. A man holds with his hands a great fish, a woman a snake which coils over her breast. These strange figures, without doubt, do not represent the type of ancient population of San Augustine at all, but are reminiscences of them, of an epoch very anterior. They represent remote myths preserved through the traverse and preceding centuries by their religious character. But these are not the only American sculptures which reproduce the feature of Negroid type. The same thing is seen in ancient Mexican sculpture related to the period anterior to that of the Otomis, such as the great diacritic head of Hayapan and the giant hatchet of Veracruz, whose head presents a great similarity with the figure of the woman of the statue of San Augustine. Both have identical features and are of the same style and obedient to the same model that are the autochthonous Negro race whose dispersed remains were encountered by the conquerors and upon which was found later the so-called American Red Race. New facts and discoveries will doubtless confirm this supposition that the primitive American population was a Negroid race. We know only today the culture states of about three groups of most ancient men in America: the Pompeian races, plainsmen of Argentina and the Atlantic coast; the Caribs, the cruel navigating invaders from the West Indies of later time, long after original man had come by some other land route, probably uniting, as is thought, the Cape of Good Hope with Cape Horn. There were Negroes, surely, who had brought from Madagascar the sweet potato vine and taro plant to the oceanic islands of the Pacific, and the Negroid races of Papua, and who also brought the banana plant. Thirdly, we have the great Andean races, the mountain tribes, dwellers of the heights, 12,000, 16,000 feet above sea level, All these three separate types of races of ancient man and South American continent were amalgamated with original Hamite dwarf, who was our most primitive American being. All right, so you heard him say Hamite, right? Now, that is a religious term. I'm not religious, so I'm not going to delve into that. I'm not going to go that deep into it. What I will say is what they also are admitting that these were black folks, no matter how you slice it, right? And that's all across the globe. And people could be mad all they want to be, but the evidence is we are the first people across the globe, period. You know what I'm saying? And so, for us that's here in the Americas, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, in North America. But for those that's in the Caribbean, like Jamaica and Cuba and Dominican Republic and Haiti and all all of the different islands that's in the Caribbean, we're family. I want y'all to understand that because that's what the truth is. What's crazy is that people believe that these Siberian looking type folks are the original Indians. They can't be. They're not even the original people of their place in Asia. They are not. You know, Groups of people from Asia did come here, but when they did, they looked like this. They were Negroid stock Asians. They were not the Siberian looking Asians. Those people, just like Caucasians, have only been in existence for maybe the last 8,000 years, and that's being generous. And you might ask yourself, how do we know this? Well, that's because all the cave art of the original Asian folks, all of the original pictures that they drew of themselves, they were also Negroes. They were also Negroid stock. You know, those people that we look at today and you call Asians, they came from a much later time period, much more recent time period. And how they got into America was more along the lines of when Genghis Khan was trying to conquer the world. He came to the Americas and had a bunch of fights with us over here. And obviously he didn't win, but that doesn't mean his people didn't come and stay when they got here. Okay, a lot of people that didn't get killed in these battles, they're still here. But the original Asians are black folks, and we know that. They did their own studies and came up with that equation that their ancestors were black. They say Africans, but they can't say where from exactly. But what we do know is some of the few Aboriginal groups left on the planet, like the Jarawa in India, they're black. If you look at them, they look very small, like pygmy, and just like the Sentinelese, also of India, they are also black. And they're also very short people. Now, these people are the same kind of people that they found first all across the planet. So no, these people are not the original people at all. These folks that we call Siberian, they really are distant relatives of the original so-called black people of Asia. And that's why they still have a lot of the facial features. You see like the nose and the lips sometimes, but these folks are only different in the fact that they were affected by the same thing that created Caucasian people. That is it. That's it. So no, those folks are not our predecessors. We are their predecessors. Everywhere across the planet, every group of people, we are their predecessors. It's ridiculous to admit that the Olmec were the mother culture of all American Indians. Look at this picture and say, how can you say that the Indians weren't Negroes? And they painted them damn selves. And this is how they painted themselves. This is on a wall in Veracruz. Okay? It ain't a game. So listen, it don't really matter what these other folks want to tell you. The Negro stock people are the original people of the planet, including here in the Americas. They've known this all along. And no matter how they want to try to change the history, they can't. The artifacts are going to tell the truth. You know what I mean? Even their own documentation tells the truth if you know how to look at it and if you know what you're looking at. All right? There is no such thing as a Negro. There's no such thing as a black person. There's no such thing as an African American. All of these are fake terms that they made up because if they gave us our original term, which was Indian, which basically only refers to the fact that you are the original people here, then they would have to do what they're supposed to do. At the end of the day, the evidence is in the effort. You ain't trying to get rid of them people that's on the reservations because you know them ain't the people, right? You trying to get rid of the George Floyds, the Trayvon Martins, the other young black men all across the country because you know who we are. And now we know who we are. You look at pictures and you make assumptions that all these other groups of people were here. Well, yes, other groups of people did come here. But the fact is, the original people that were here, when all of those other people showed up, just like the Eskimos and the people that you call Native Americans today, the Siberian folks, when they showed up, they was not alone. They got here and all of us was here. And that's from the West Coast to the East Coast to Mexico to Central America to South America down to the tip, all the way to the bottom. This is our shit everywhere. And they can lie and lie all they want to. It don't matter. This is our land. And we do not need to be asking anybody permission to do what we supposed to do on our land. I don't care about these fake people that want to call people wabos. They can say wabo, which they claim means want to be Aboriginal, but there is only one group of people on the planet that are Aboriginals. And you can't fake it. You can't fake it. You can't fake being a Negro. Right? Because our characteristics are too distinct. Yes, you could have other groups mixed in with us, but at no point can you ever mistake the fact that who you call Negroes are who you call Negroes. You can lie to yourself all you want to, but the original people of this entire planet, and that's including the Americas, are who you call Negroes. They are not Negroes because it's a fake term. They are Aboriginals. And even for those who don't want to accept the term Aboriginals, yes, the original people on the planet, that's fine with me. We ain't got beef. I'm not beefing with people from Asia. I'm not beefing with people from Africa. I'm not beefing with people from anywhere. Our folks in the Caribbean and Central America and South America all keep putting this term Afro in front of indigenous. It's unnecessary. Nobody's more indigenous than us nowhere on this planet. And it don't matter what goofy folks want to try to make videos about it. We got the evidence. We're the original people everywhere on this planet. Even this article told you that when they was talking about Hamites. And they said dwarf Hamites. Well, okay. You know, people call little black Negro folks dwarfs and Hamites. But all they really saying is these are Negroes. And everywhere on this planet that they landed and they showed up, there were Negroes. And this is far from my only piece of evidence. I got more. But I'm waiting for y'all to try to debunk it with your fake debunkers. You can't debunk us. You can't debunk the truth. The truth stands on its own, fool.